Dude. Doesn't the Nintendo Switch look pretty good? It's a real evolution on the portable gaming concept that we've seen on Nintendo and PlayStation over the past few years. However, does anybody remember the PS Vita? I've owned the PS Vita as well as an original Nintendo DS and Game Boy Advance. There's a few things the Switch could actually learn from the Vita. Now before I begin, there's a few speculative articles about the Switch and the concerns about the processing power and the relatively low specs of the thing, but if you're looking at a Nintendo console and you're focusing on the specs of the thing as opposed to the games, I think you're doing it wrong, because that's not the point. So, beginning with the Vita, it was good. I quite like the Vita, but it fell down in a number of ways. Like, it was excellent as a portable gaming platform because it had support for PSP games, it had indie games on there, and it also had a few AAA titles on there too. Of course, this is after a several-year run and a botched launch, but I don't think it was too bad on launch, but the general public consensus was that at the start it wasn't that great. The Killzone for the Vita was actually kind of perfect for the console just because of the pick up and play nature of the missions, because you could resume them later. If you hit a certain checkpoint, there was progression in the form of currency, and there was even multiplayer with a weird card system. The better you did that week, the higher up your card rating went, and depending upon the actions you did and the weapons you used, or even the class you used, you got a different suit. The Vita was actually at its prime in terms of games when it allowed a lot of indie things to come across the platform. Things like Thomas Was Alone, Don't Starve, Minecraft, Darkest Dungeon, and even XCOM. These all transferred across beautifully to that platform. Turn-based games like Darkest Dungeon and XCOM are actually kind of perfect for the Vita because you don't need to pay too much attention to them, because you can just press the button on the top, it pauses everything, which is a really nice feature, stops the app doing whatever, and as soon as you open it up, it's immediately there. But they're great just because of the pause functionality and the fact that you can just stop that gameplay without having to immediately go as soon as you open your console again. This is something that the Nintendo Switch could do with if it's going to emulate the portable functionality, and I don't see why they wouldn't, because they did do that with the DS and the Game Boy Advance to an extent. Actually, the GBA didn't, but the DS did have the pause functionality when you shut the lid, and just stuff like that. The DS was actually a pretty solid portable with Picto Chat and a bunch of other things. But it also suffers from the same problem that the Vita did, which is a severe lack of media apps. Both the DS and the Vita had web browsers. The Vita had a built-in one, and when I was using the DS, you had to get Opera as a separate game disc for it. And they were both pretty crap. And this is one of the bigger problems with it. The Vita didn't support Netflix, it didn't support Spotify, it didn't support a bunch of other media apps properly. Like, it had music, and it had a video app, and it did actually have a media streaming service that I use called Music Unlimited, but Sony dropped this in favour of allowing Spotify onto their platforms. Like, I have watched films on my Vita. I got Spider-Man free with some game bundle or another. I think it was actually the Vita itself. I did watch the new one, like, you know, the remake of the Tobey Maguire thing where they got in new actors and did the whole Green Goblin thing again for no reason. But the problem I had with the Vita and watching films and, well, even porn on it, was that the form factor kind of made it awkward. There wasn't any sort of proper stand for the thing, like there is on the Switch with the little extendable back thing. Generally, where the headphone jack was placed meant it so that you had to hold the thing in your arms for the full length of the film, or balance it on a pillow if you're watching it in bed, because it was on the bottom of it, and that's where you rest anything. That's what you get the idea. Putting your headphone jack on the bottom of a device is a generally stupid idea. It would have been nice if this came out of one of the sides, or even just the top. The Vita was a pretty piss-poor media machine, and one of the plus signs that a lot of people actually liked about it was that it was kind of a good porn browser. Because the browser was so crap, any video you tried to play on, well, any porn streaming site like Pornhub or RedTube or whatever, like if you embed a file as an object or a HTML5 element. But the Vita didn't support either of these, so it would just download the video. And this would be quite nice because you would just have a library of them on your Vita for you to browse later on, which made the Vita quite a nice porn browser, which is something that I've heard off of one of my friends who has a lot of Vita owners, and I've discussed with people I know who are Vita owners. This was something I mentioned in passing to my sister who has one, and she went, fair point. I don't actually miss my Vita for watching porn, because I still use it from day to day. I do play XCOM and I do play Darkest Dungeon on the thing, just not very often. Sort of procedurally generated games like Minecraft and Don't Starve and even Necropolis are kind of a perfect fit for the Vita's sort of bite-sized nature in its gameplay. The Vita really shined when it added indie support like Thomas Was Alone and games like that, which Thomas Was Alone and Hotline Miami were excellent games on the Vita. And this is something I would like to see extended to the Nintendo Switch. Nintendo has a pretty good track record with, development for indie games, with the developer program, which I'm a part of in a few ways. I can't actually talk specifics, but there are a few areas in which they could improve on that, but because of the NDA, I'm not allowed to say. Nintendo, if you're listening, give me an email and I'll tell you what I think about it. But something I would like to kind of see, and this is something I can talk about because it's common knowledge, is the potential for developing things like the Ouya does, or any other Android console, where you can just put an app on there, on the base console that the consumers own, without having to buy a dev kit. You wouldn't necessarily be able to publish on there without a publisher fee, but being able to sideload apps onto the Nintendo Switch would be great, because essentially what I want is a gaming device with media functionality took into account. I would love to be able to sideload Kodi onto the Switch and use my Kodi server and watch films on there throughout the house. I would love to be able to watch Netflix on there and have my music collection on there, Spotify. I would love to be able to browse the web properly on the Switch, as well as switch across to some excellent indie titles or even Nintendo titles like Mario Kart. I love my tablet at the minute for watching Netflix and listening to music or YouTube videos while I work. And it's a really good media device just for even browsing the web. Like the Switch, because it is a tablet and a gaming console, I could see that easily replacing my tablet if I bought one. And this is the thing, I hope Nintendo learns from the Vita and the rise of modern tablets and makes the Switch a cross between a tablet and a gaming console. It could learn so much from the Vita's lack of media apps and everything and just provide this all-in-one lovely package for consumers and gamers. That stand on the back of it is just begging for Netflix, because that stand is beautiful. I have a Kindle Fire, and one of the best things I've actually bought for that thing is the origami case, which allows you to, stand it in a wide range of places. I would love to see Spotify or Amazon Music or Netflix, or even an e-reader on the Switch would be brilliant. I really like the idea as well of the split-off controller, where you can split it in two and hand one half to your friend while you have the other half and play Mario Kart together. I hope as well that you don't need the dock to connect it to a TV. I hope there's a HDMI port so you can just immediately do it, because I could take that to my girlfriend's house, play some wonderful Nintendo games which she would love with the basic controllers that we have, and then switch across to Netflix or Amazon Prime or Spotify or even all the films that I could load on there. Like, something I don't want it to do is have proprietary expandable memory cards like the Vita, where you had to pay 50 quid. Like, I bought a 64 gig card, and that was still chuffing expensive for what it was. Like, I would love them just to implement normal SD cards so I could run, I don't know, maybe a terabyte one. Like, I hope they don't have a cap on that that's ridiculously low like some cameras do. Because if I could load my entire film collection onto an SD card and then watch it on the Switch, fantastic. And if I could then plug that into TVs without much drama, that's even better. That is a portable media center that I want, and it's got the horsepower to do it. Add in a Kodi app, and we're all set. Goddamn, I'm looking forward to the Switch, and these hopes and dreams that I have, I realise most of them I'm probably not going to get, but I expect at least decent media support before I'm going to purchase the thing. I stopped buying Nintendo products around when the Wii came out, because while the Wii was decent, the novelty kind of wore off and I went back to PC gaming quite quickly. So I've not seen if they've made any improvements on the media front with the Wii U or anything else like that. But the Wii, the original Wii, actually had Amazon Prime, the instant video service, on there. Because I checked the other day and they actually added an app for watching this shit on there, as well as Netflix and other media devices. I like the idea of the Switch, and I guess what I really want is a device that takes media and gaming as seriously as each other, where one isn't prioritized to the detriment of the other, but at the same time, to be perfectly honest, if they're going to prioritize one of them, I would prefer it was gaming. Because it is a gaming console from Nintendo, and that is what it's supposed to do. But for me to use it as a consumer, needs a lot more adding to it.